Okay, I think we're ready to start. Once again, thank you for joining the second webinar of the webinar series on effective team teaching practices offered by the European School Education Platform, the European Commission's platform for school education in Europe. My name is Maria Elena and I will be the hostess of this session. So, this is a recorded webinar and all the material will be uploaded on the European School Education Platform in the coming days. You can find the webinars page on the chat. My colleague Marta has shared it with you already, if I'm not mistaken. And before we begin, I would like to remind you of some very important technicalities. Following the general data protection regulations, as you can see, your microphones and your cameras have been disabled. However, you can always use the chat to post any thoughts, any questions, something that you would like to share. Always with respect towards the other learners, the other participants, and our speaker, of course. Also, we kindly ask you not to share any personal information during this session. And instead, you can always use the Connect tab on the European School Education Platform for partner finding and collaborations. We would also like to remind you of how you can obtain a certificate for this webinar series. As you can see on your screens, in order to obtain a certificate, it is very important that you have registered and joined both webinars of the webinar series. The first webinar took place on Monday. So in case you didn't participate in that one, unfortunately, you won't be eligible to obtain a certificate even if you complete the final activity. And of course, join today's session. Thank you again for being here. And of course, also to complete the final activity, as I mentioned earlier, the deadline to submit the activities is this Friday on the 12th of December before midnight. Please note that we might need to postpone this deadline, so we'll give you more time to fill in the activity. However, this hasn't been decided yet, so please keep in mind this deadline, Friday, the 12th of December, before midnight, Central European time always. Please be mindful of the time zones. The certificates will become available from next Tuesday onwards. In case you cannot find them on your profiles, please don't worry. You will be able to see them from next Tuesday onwards. So, I would also like to introduce you to a very useful tool, the Captions tool, as you can see on your screens. With this tool, you are able to add subtitles and live captions to this webinar. To do so, please click on the button More at the bar on the top of your screen, and then move to Language and Speech and click the button Live Captions. You can also install this function by going again to the button More, click on the settings and turn on the captions in the accessibility section. Of course, once again, if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat and we will be very happy to help you. Before we delve deeper into today's topic, let me remind you of some important points in bullet points. I won't take long, I promise, that we discussed on Monday as a reminder. So basically, on Monday, Aaron spoke to us about the theoretical foundations and definitions of team teaching. So he presented some advantages and challenges of team teaching and, of course, research findings on effective teaching behavior when using the team teaching approach. In this second webinar of our webinar series, Aaron will focus on the practical methods of implementing team teaching effectively through real-world examples, some reflection strategies, and planning approaches. So this is a more practical session. We hope that you will gain some inspiration, some material that you can also use in your teaching practices and maybe even try to apply the team teaching approach in your classrooms. So I would like now to give the floor to Aaron, who will share his expertise with us. And with no further delays, Aaron, you can share your screen.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Webinar 2 of the European Commission's webinar series on effective team teaching practices. It's great to have you back with us again. And today we will focus on practical strategies for effective team teaching, the approaches, routines, and conditions that help teachers collaborate successfully in real classrooms. As we go through the session, I invite you to reflect on how these strategies relate to your own context. And of course, if you have any questions or remarks, please feel free to share them at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, I would like to briefly walk you through the outline for today's webinar. First, I will share some additional insights into what team teaching entails and how can we think about it in practice. And after that, I will present two practical tools that can support teachers in implementing team teaching effectively. And finally, we'll wrap up with a set of general tips and tricks that can help strengthen collaborative teaching in everyday classroom life. So let's begin with some additional insights into what team teaching entails and how can we think about it in practice. I would like to start by briefly revisiting some key points about teacher collaboration and team teaching, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So in most schools around the world today, solo teaching remains the dominant teaching practice. However, both scholars and policymakers are increasingly advocating for teacher collaboration as an alternative to traditional solo teaching. And this shift is driven by a growing knowledge base, which highlights the benefits of collaboration for both teachers and students. Research showed that when teachers collaborate, it leads to positive outcomes for both teaching and learning. As a result, teacher collaboration has gained increasing attention in both educational research and practice. And one specific form of teacher collaboration that has emerged is team teaching, which is the focus of this webinar. Team teaching, we have already defined it in the previous webinar, and we define it here in this webinar as two or more teachers in some level of collaboration, but also shared responsibility in the planning, delivery, and or evaluation of a course or multiple courses. And this definition will guide the rest of today's webinar. Over the past 2 decades, team teaching has gained considerable attention, and it's widely promoted by researchers, schools, and policymakers for its potential to enhance teaching and learning. Before we move on, I would like to hear your thoughts on an important questions. What are or what can be the motivations to start with team teaching? And these motivations can exist on different levels, at the student level, at the teacher level, and at the school level. So as you share your ideas, feel free to think broadly what student-related needs might trigger team teaching, what teacher-related motivations come to mind, and what school-wide goals or challenges might make team teaching appealing. So please go to the Padlet and enter the link, or you can scan the QR code with your phone. I will give you a moment to contribute your thoughts, and then we'll look at your inputs together, and afterwards we will connect it with findings from more research within the Estafette project. We already have some answers in the Padlet. For instance, a motivation to start with team teaching is to share workloads, indeed, and also to reduce teacher burnouts, because multiple teachers are together in the classroom. It also relates to the shared workloads. A motivation to start team teaching is that it can motivate teachers and learners, indeed. It's some meta thinking. Another motivation is to share experiences between teachers, and it can also have some benefits for students too. You can build a strong community within a school and get to know the people, the teachers around you, and more in depth, I think. See a lot of answers within the teacher and student level. For instance, at the student level, there can be more help in the class to help the students in their learning process. Someone is sharing own experiences that can significantly reduce the workloads that individual teachers face today, because they can prepare together the lesson. Shared responsibility, one of the key dimensions of theme teaching. It's also here indicated. For teacher well-being, to work with joy and less effort, also from experience. And sharing experiences with each other, and also to address different needs of students. Okay, thank you very much for sharing your ideas about the motivations to start with team teaching. So let me now share some evidence from a large-scale questionnaire survey study within the SFET project. We surveyed 467 team teachers working in Flemish pre-primary, primary, and secondary schools. And these data gave us a rich and very concrete picture of how teachers across Flanders exactly, actually experience team teaching in practice. And the key question here, of course, is why do schools and teachers choose to start with team teaching? What are the real drivers behind this shift? Well, when we look at the data, the most frequently mentioned reason is very clear. Teachers chose team teaching because they want to better support their learners, their students, including students with specific educational needs. Because there are multiple teachers in front of the classroom, they're better able to address those specific educational needs. The second strong motivation is the desire to strengthen and support teachers themselves. So on the teacher level, team teachers emphasize that by combining their expertise, they become stronger together. They can learn from each other's approaches, share strategies, and offer more consistent guidance to their students. A third important reason is to make working with large class groups more feasible and more sustainable. Sharing responsibility for the students, jointly maintaining order in the classroom, co-planning and dividing tasks help teachers manage the workload, which is also frequently mentioned in the Padlet. And a fourth motivation comes from the school leadership. For some teachers, team teaching is something their principal invites or encourages them to experiment with. Sometimes school leaders explicitly want to spread the positive effects of team teaching throughout their school. In other cases, it's also possible that they are simply forced to think creatively due to practical constraints, such as limited infrastructure, teacher shortage, or a declining student population. And a fifth reason relates to professional learning. Just indicate that collaborating closely with a colleague offers strong opportunities to learn from one another. It's also something that was mentioned a lot within the Padlet. Overall, these results show that the motivation for team teaching are multi-layered. They involve student teachers, but also the school as a whole. Now that we have a better understanding of why schools choose team teaching, let's take a closer look at how teachers actually collaborate in practice. When we talk about team teaching models, we are essentially talking about the way teachers work together, how they divide tasks, how they interact during the lesson, and what roles they each take on. Based on an extensive review of the literature, we distinguish 7 models of team teaching. And to identify these models, we looked at how teachers collaborate across the 3 phases of team teaching: the planning and how the lesson is prepared, the delivery, how the lesson is carried out in the classroom, and the evaluation phase, how teachers reflect afterwards on student learning and their collaboration. And these models vary in several ways. They're objective. For example, whether the goal is to differentiate, to give instruction together, or to support some small group or specific students. The second is the group size, whether teachers work with one class, combined classes, or flexible groups. And then also the roles each teacher takes on. Equal roles, but also complementary roles are possible, or more supportive or assisting roles. And in the next slides, I will walk you through each of the 7 models, organized according to the 3 phases of team teaching: the planning, delivery, and evaluation phase. And this will help us understand how collaboration can look very different from classroom to classroom, and how schools can choose a model that fits their context, but also their educational goals. So one of the 7 team teaching models is the observation model. In this model, team teaching is used primarily to observe students. During the planning phase, the teacher discusses the focus of the observation. For example, you might ask your colleague to pay extra attention to a specific student's concentration, what distracts them, and why are they fully engaged, and when are they fully engaged in the tasks. And during the delivery phase, one teacher leads the lesson while the other observes the selected students. And the observer collects insights on, for instance, here, student engagement, behavior, or learning strategies. That depends on the agreed focus. And finally, in the evaluation phase, the reflection phase, the teachers meet to discuss what they observed, what patterns did we notice, what can we learn from this, and how should we adjust our approach in future lessons. And this model is especially useful for gathering detailed information about students' learning and behavior, and for improving instructional decisions based on direct observation. Another model of team teaching is the coaching model. This model is closely related to the observation model, but the key difference is the focus. In the observation model, the focus is on the students, and in the coaching model, the focus is on the teacher. And during the planning phase, one teacher brings a specific learning question to their colleague. For example, I'm unsure how to give this instruction most effectively to this class, or the start of my lesson sometimes feels chaotic. Could you observe and help me see what could be done differently? And then during the delivery phase, one teacher teaches the lesson while the other teacher supports by observing, but also asking questions, adding suggestions, or demonstrating a strategy. And finally, during the evaluation phase, the teachers reflect together on the lesson and focusing mainly on the coaching question. So, what is already working well, what could be done differently, and what support or resources are needed to improve further. And this model is especially effective for teachers' professional development, for peer learning, and for refining instructional practice in real time. Another widely used team teaching model is the assistant teaching model. In this model, one teacher takes the lead and is responsible for teaching the whole class, while the other teacher or teachers provides targeted support to individual students or small groups. And during the planning phase, the teacher discusses in advance which students needs extra support and how that support will be delivered. For example, 3 children who struggle to concentrate during a whole class story might read the story separately with the supporting, the assisting teacher, or a student who has difficulties with reading comprehension might be supported by having the task read together with the assisting teacher. And during the lesson, the lead teacher delivers the instruction while the assistant teacher moves around to provide agreed upon support. And finally, in the evaluation phase, the teachers reflect together: was the support effective? Did students benefit from it? And what adjustments, if there are any, are needed for future lessons? And this model is particularly useful for differentiation and ensuring that our learners receive the support they need during classroom instruction. Sometimes, for a particular lesson or learning objective, it's necessary or possible for 2 or more teachers to be present throughout the lesson. In these cases, collaboration can still happen in the planning and reflection phase, even if the teaching itself is delivered separately. One effective approach is the sequential teaching model. During the planning phase, teachers divide the learning contents or the activities between them. And for example, one teacher might deliver the theory while the other follows up later in the lesson or in a subsequent session with applications or even exercises. Another example could be working on a joint project. One teacher guides students in developing writing skills, and the other focuses on oral skills afterwards. And during the lesson phase, each teacher teaches their assigned part independently. And finally, in the evaluation phase, the teachers come back together to reflect on the lesson, what worked well, what could be improved, and how the learning goals were achieved. And this model allows for flexible collaboration when team teaching in the same room is not possible or feasible, while still maintaining shared planning and shared reflection. Then we have the parallel teaching model, which is closely related to the sequential model, but the key difference lies in the timing, but also in the focus. In the sequential model, teachers work one after the other with the same group on different contents. And in the parallel model, teachers work at the same time with different groups, often using slightly different processes. And during the planning phase, the class is divided into two subgroups, and teachers discuss how to address the lesson goals for each group, and they may decide to use different strategies or even adapt the content slightly to meet the specific needs of their students. And during the lesson phase, the teachers work in parallel with their respective groups, focusing on the same learning content and goals, but adapting the approach as needed. And then finally, in the evaluation phase, the teachers come back together to reflect what did each group achieve, did the chosen approach work effectively for each group or not, and what adjustments might be needed for the next lesson. And this model is particularly useful for also differentiation, but also for giving teachers more manageable group sizes. Yeah. Then we have the station teaching model. And this model teachers divide both the learning content, but also the class group into smaller segments. So during the lesson, each teacher, either the teachers or the students, rotate between different stations of the classroom, and each teacher provides intensive guidance to the group at their station, ensuring that students receive focused attention, but also the support they needed. And this approach allows teachers to work closely with smaller groups. They can differentiate instruction where needed. And they can also cover multiple learning activities in parallel. And at the end of the lesson, teachers typically reflect together on what each group has achieved and how these activities worked, and making adjustments for future lessons as needed. And the station teaching model is especially useful for active learning and for maximizing teacher-student interactions within one class period. And then finally, we have the teaming model, the last model of the team teaching models. And this model is used when two or more teachers together can offer more than one alone. For example, with complex content, or to demonstrate a skill or procedure, or during a role play. And during the planning phase, teachers decide based on the learning objectives. It's very important, where it makes sense to teach together rather than separately. And during the lesson, teachers provide instruction interactively. They complement each other, respond to each other's questions. They demonstrate tasks or concepts together. And after the lesson, in the evaluation phase, teachers reflect together. Was the interactive approach effective? What worked well? And where is further adjustment or follow-up needed? And this model is particularly valuable when joint presence adds instructional value, and when the interaction between teachers can enhance student learning. And now I would like to get your input on the following question. Which team teaching models do you think are being used most often? Just in general and not in your specific context. So please go to padlet.com and enter the link. It's shown on the slide, or you can also scan the QR code. So take a moment to reflect based on your experiences, or what you have observed, or what you think about it. So which of the 7, I listed them next to the QR codes: the observation model, coaching model, assisting teaching model, sequential teaching model, parallel teaching model, the station teaching model, and finally the teaming model. So which of the 7 models tend to be used more frequently? And once you've added your thoughts, we will review them and compare them next with findings from research within the Estafette research project. see already some responses in the Padlet. I will stop sharing here and share the Padlet. Okay. And then we see assistant teaching model, although it can differ from country to country, coaching model, and also the observation model, parallel teaching model. So a bit of everything. No, mostly the assistant teaching model I see, but other team teaching models are also possible, you think? Okay, I think it's very clear. So most of the participants think that the assistant teaching model is used mostly in practice. Now we will take a look at the results from Flanders that can differ from other countries, but that's data we have collected. So based on the estafette survey with team teaching teachers in Flanders, that's something we need to add. That is only data from Flanders. And we can see some interesting patterns in which models are actually used in practice. And it differs between the teaching levels. So in pre-primary education, the most commonly reported approaches are the mix of models, but also the station teaching model and the parallel teaching model are used frequently. In primary education, we see that the assistant teaching model, but also the mix of models are used very frequently. And then in secondary education, it's almost 40% that indicates that they use a mix of models, and to a lesser extent, assistant teaching model. So overall, this suggests that the assistant, but also the parallel and the station teaching models are most commonly implemented during team teaching. And it also shows that teachers often adapt and combine models, see the large results, large percentages for the mix of models to fit their lesson objectives and the need of their students. So to a large extent, you were correct in the Padlet. The assistant teaching model is frequently used, although it differs from education level. And mostly the mix of the models are used the most. But again, this is data from within Flanders, and it can be context specific. And the main message here is simple but powerful. It's important to mix maximally. It's important to vary in the application of different team teaching models. So using a variety of approaches allows team teaching to reach its full potential. So also switch roles regularly with your team teacher within a model. And this not only creates more opportunities to learn from each other, but also helps teachers to feel equal and engaged in the collaboration. And it's also important to pay attention to how your group of students, depending on the model and the learning objectives, can influence the implementation of the specific model. And perhaps the most importantly, do all this intentionally. So discuss with your teacher partner which models and roles best fit your learning goals, your students' needs, and your team dynamic. So, in short, mixing models thoughtfully is the key to effective team teaching. So now that we have explored the foundations of team teaching and the different team teaching models, I would like to move on to the second part of today's webinar, the practical tools. And in this section, I will introduce two tools that can help you strengthen your team teaching practice. So let's start with the first practical tool, the decision tree. And this is a support tool to help teachers use team teaching models purposefully. It guides you in selecting the model that best fits your lesson objectives, student needs, but also teaching context. And the decision tree is based on research that has been adapted to the Flemish context. So last year we worked with several schools within the Estafette research project to apply it in practice. And based on their feedback, we have further refined the decision tree to make it even more practical, but also relevant to practice. And on this slide, you can see on the right a visual representation of the decision tree. And as you will notice, it walks you through the planning, delivery, and reflection phase, helping you make intentional choices about which model and roles to use in a given lesson. You can access the full decision tree on the Estafette website via this link or also by scanning the QR code. It's available in Dutch, but we hope you will be able to translate it into your own language and use it in your context. So a bit more information about the decision tree. The decision tree is a tool designed to support team teaching practice. First, the decision tree is inspiring for practice. It gives teachers concrete guidance while encouraging creativity, but also reflection on their practice. It guides them to purposeful use of team teaching models that are aligned with the specific lesson objectives and helping teachers choose the right approach for each situation. And it takes into account the needs of both students, but also teachers. So balancing learning goals with teacher support and workload. And the decision tree stimulates collaboration across the three teaching phases, planning before the lesson, working together during the lesson, but also reflecting afterwards. It also encourages teachers to speak the same language. They talk about the same team teaching models. They know what it is like to implement it in practice, and also to reflect together on both their teaching and their collaboration. And this will build a shared understanding. And finally, it is tailored specifically for the Flemish education context and is suitable for pre-primary, primary, and secondary education. But it can thus depend on the specific context. So in short, the decision tree is a practical but also a flexible tool that helps teachers make intentional, collaborative choices in team teaching. So based on the findings from the Estafette project, it's recommended that teachers use the team teaching decision tree during the lesson preparation, so the first phase of team teaching. And the structure of the decision tree guides purposeful planning and ensures that both student and teacher needs are considered. And the preparation begins with a clear assignment for the team teaching teachers. So first, determine the learning objectives for this lesson and identify what your students and you as a team need to achieve these objectives. And only after discussing and formulating the goals and needs should teachers walk through the decision tree. So it's important to first discuss it, and then afterwards you can use the decision tree. And the tree starts with a central question. Why are we choosing team teaching for this lesson or this lesson phase? Because it's also possible to implement a specific team teaching model for a specific team teaching lesson phase, so a part of the whole lesson. And if it is mainly to enhance student learning, or to allow teachers to learn from each other. Of course, both purposes can happen simultaneously. But when the focus is on the students, the first step is to determine whether the students' needs are sufficiently understood. If not, the observation model is recommended to gain better insight in the students' needs. And once student needs are met, teacher decides on group size, and one large group or multiple smaller groups. And for the whole group, models like teaming or assistant teaching model are suitable. So this is here, teaming and assistant teaching model. And for smaller groups, the station teaching model or the parallel teaching model are ideal, particularly when differentiating or multiple learning goals or varying paces are required. And smaller groups are also helpful when high teacher-student interaction is needed, for example, when practicing a new skill. When the focus is on the teacher professional learning, the main question is whether teachers want to learn from each other about students' needs or teaching approaches. And this could involve observing selected students and discussing observations together, it's observation model, or each teacher talking or taking responsibility for a part of the lesson to leverage their expertise. This is the sequential teaching model. Or another option is coaching each other based on a specific teaching question. So in short, the decision tree helps teachers to make intentional, goal-directed choices about which team teaching model to use, how to group students, but also how to structure the collaboration and to maximize both student learning, but also teacher development. So let's now look at our second practical tool, the CSTT scale. And this tool allows teachers and schools, school teams, to reflect on how they collaborate and share responsibility in team teaching. It focuses on how roles are distributed, how teachers plan, deliver, and reflect together, and whether collaboration is systematic and purposeful. And importantly, it's not about evaluating individual teachers, but about strengthening the team and making team teaching more balanced, collaborative, and effective for students. You can also access the CSTT scale via the website using the URL or scanning the QR code. And CST stands for Collaboration and Shared Responsibility Scale in Team Teaching. So team teaching involves two or more teachers working together and sharing responsibility, two main dimensions of team teaching for the planning, delivering, and also evaluating a lesson or a series of lessons. And collaboration and shared responsibility are at the heart, like I told before, two key dimensions of team teaching. And this is exactly what the CSTT scale helps you measure. And the scale consists of 15 statements that reflect various aspects of team teaching or collaboration and shared responsibility. And it can be used individually or together as a team. It provides a structured way to reflect on the collaboration you have with your colleagues. And here is how to use it. There's first a preparation phase, so you need to decide the purpose of completing the scale. So are you doing it to gain insight, to guide a decision, a discussion, or a baseline for comparison later? So you first need to decide what the purpose is, and then each teacher fills in the scale individually. So it's important to fill in the scale individually. And then there is an evaluation phase, and this can be individual or as a team. When individually you review your scores and you reflect on patterns you see, higher scores, lower scores for different dimensions. And you can think about follow-up actions which can be needed for that. But it can also be used as a team evaluation. So you compare your answers with the answers of your colleague, and you can discuss where you agree or differ, and explore what helps or hinders the collaboration or the shared responsibility. And together you can then formulate concrete action points. For example, from now on, we will always this or that, or we will increase this or that. So using the CSTT skill this way helps teachers reflect deeply on their practices, but also strengthens collaboration and ensures shared responsibility for them. So the CSTT skill can be used to assess current practice, so understand where your team is strong and where's the room for improvement, but also can guide professional development, highlight areas where teachers could learn from each other or adjust responsibilities. But it can also foster shared reflection, so it encourages team teachers to discuss their practices and make collaboration more intentional. And in short, the CSTT skill is not about evaluating, very important, it's not about evaluating teachers individually, but it's about strengthening the team and ensuring that team teaching is balanced, collaborative, and most of all, effective for your practice and in turn for the students you're teaching. Now that we have explored the models and practical tools of team teaching, let's move on to the last part of this webinar, the general tips and tricks, which we collected within the Estafette research project. So let's go through some general insights and lessons learned. For starters, don't just call it team teaching. The name alone doesn't make it effective. It's about how you work together that makes it count. This is what we discussed in the previous webinar. Can lead to more effective teaching and team teaching. This is according to the teachers themselves. They report that the teacher collaboration, the team teaching, can improve their effective teaching behavior practices too. This can thus lead to effective team teaching. And much effective teaching behavior in team teaching, but there's a large variation within that. There's a lot of good practice, but it's not always consistent across teachers or lessons. It's also a lesson we learned and we discussed in the previous webinar. And then a fourth general insight and lesson learned is that team teaching changes who you are as a teacher. So working closely with a colleague often shifts your professional identity and self-perception. You're not longer the sole responsible for teaching, but you share it with another colleague, or at least one colleague, but can be also multiple colleagues. There are also preconditions. It can be a driver or a barrier for team teaching. For instance, contextual factors like school leadership, but also resources and time. And this can either support or hinder successful or effective team teaching. So taking together these points give us a clear picture. Team teaching has great potential, but it works best when teachers collaborate intentionally, reflect together, and adapt to their students' needs. And then we are finally at the recommendations, some strategic recommendations for using team teaching effectively. So consider team teaching as a purposeful form of collaboration. It's not just about having two or multiple teachers together in the classroom and teaching. It's about working together intentionally to promote high quality learning for all students. It's also important to strengthen team teaching through learning at individual level. This includes individual teacher growth, collaborative learning within the teaching team, and fostering a school-wide culture of professional development. And use team teaching as an approach to strengthen personal management, something new. That's not something we discussed before, but you can also use team teaching as an approach just to strengthen personal management. So beyond pedagogy, team teaching can support school-level strategies such as mentoring novice teachers, distributing expertise from more experienced teachers, but also enhance overall teacher collaboration. So team teaching is most effective when it's purposeful, structured, and aligned with both teaching and organizational goals. So thank you all for your attention today. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to present my research, our research within the Estafette Research Project. And I'm very happy to engage with you about the topic of team teaching. So if you have any questions or comments, remarks, I would be pleased to address them now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for this second webinar, for delving deeper into the practical strategies of implementing effectively the team teaching approach. Indeed, we have some questions in the chat. I don't know if they have been answered already because you presented some examples, but maybe we can elaborate a bit more.
Yeah,
so the first question was if you can give an example on the first coaching model. Do you mean a teacher to help the other to improve the teaching process?
I will go back.
Yes. That would be nice.
The coaching model?
Yes, I think. Yeah, that one, the second one, I think.
This one.
Yes, I think. Yeah.
So this model differs a bit from the observation model. It's also here, there's one teacher that leads the teaching, as a leader in teaching, and there is the other teacher that observes while the other teacher is teaching. And the observation of the focus of the observation is not on the student, like in the observation model, but it's on the colleague. And in the preparation phase, they can discuss what would be interesting to look, to observe, but also they can help the teacher that is coaching can help during the teaching, and afterwards they discuss how it went and what can be improved for the next time. So, but it really depends on the specific question the team teaching colleague has, what the coaching teacher is observing, but it can be all sorts of foci. Is this an answer to the question?
I believe it answered the question, especially since you mentioned that it can be adjusted. I believe that all models can be adjusted to its context, its need, its subject taught.
Yeah, these models are general, but it needs to be implemented in a specific way, and it depends on what the teachers, but also the students' needs are. And in this regard, the decision tree can help you decide what specific team teaching model is best to implement, depending on the goal you want to achieve during this lesson.
I have shared also the link to the website on the knowledge platform of Estafette, so they can find it also in the chat. It can be translated. I tested it.
Okay.
And I have two more questions. Again, we would like to have an example for from the teaming model.
Okay.
And how can teachers are supposed to interact between them?
Also, this is very generic team teaching model. It needs to be implemented specifically depending on the goals they want to achieve. But for instance, they can complement each other during an instruction. for instance, a specific mathematical problem that needs to be discussed, explained, and one teacher starts with the explanation, and another teacher can add what is not clear enough, or can give an example of it. But it can also be used to demonstrate things, so that one teacher is talking, is explaining what is happening, and the other teacher is demonstrating what is happening. So doing the things he needs to do while the other teacher explains what is happening. So it actually divides the different tasks a teacher can take upon them. But it can also be used um, to show some things. For instance, in role play, uh, uh, I'm thinking about talking about bullying, and there's role play that one teacher bullies the other teacher and how you can address this bullying. So that's not something you can do with a teacher and a student. It's something that two teachers are needed to show, and that's why and how a teaming model can be of added value.
I think it's clear now. For me, it's
Okay.
clear.
Okay.
But if we can go back to the coaching model, maybe because Miriam is asking what the learning question could be, if
Okay.
what the learning question can be.
So, for instance, that one teacher is unsure about the instruction he's giving about reading. He's trying to explain to the students how to pronounce different letters, for instance. And the other teacher, so they discussed it beforehand that this would be something that the other colleague would observe. And then the colleague is observing the teacher who is giving the instruction about reading to the students. And when it's clear and it's well done, then it's okay, and then discuss it afterwards. But when it's not that clear, they can also add or give some suggestions while teaching. So that's also of an added value to use this coaching model. So actually, this the other teacher is helping the other teacher to improve in his teaching. That's a way of using this model.
I hope now it's also more clear for
Okay.
our audience as well. No, but I feel that it's what we said earlier. It can be adjusted. If someone needs support, like a teacher needs support, on they don't feel, as you said,
Yeah.
confident with an element on how they are
Yeah.
teaching, on how they are presenting, maybe a historical term, for example,
Yeah.
they can use this model. Thank you very much. So as we are almost running out of time, we still have like 2 minutes. I would like to read a very interesting comment that came through the chat from, I think it was from Slavica. Yes. So Slavika mentioned that, from what I understand, it's a comment, it's a thought, it's not a question.
Okay.
She mentioned that, from what I understand, team teaching can be a real solution for contemporary teaching, with Generation Z and Alpha students increasing educational demands and the growing workload placed on teachers. It is becoming unrealistic for one teacher to manage everything alone. Team teaching allows responsibilities to be shared and provides students with more support and more individualized learning. This approach is also highly beneficial for inclusion because it enables teachers to better respond to diverse needs in the classroom and offer more targeted assistance to learners who require additional support. And I saw that many people agreed with that.
I also agree with it. Team teaching has a lot of potential, but it's not automatic. It's not because you have two teachers who are teaching together that it has its benefits. There needs to be some kind of professional development for the teachers, but also the students need to be able to adjust to this way of teaching. And also school-wide, there needs to be some support from the school leader. So it's important to have all this all these preconditions before you can come to, you show it here, to effective team teaching practices. So it's, yeah, I totally agree with the comments. It has a lot of benefits.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Slavica, for this. I didn't know.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm very sorry for the pronunciation. Please excuse me. So where shall we find the test? The test is on the link I have shared with you earlier. It's on the knowledge platform. I can reshare it with you again. It's in Dutch, but you can use the translation tool it is provided by Google, the automatic translation one. And yes, you can take a look there, and hopefully it will work for you as well. So now, before we close, I would like to thank you, all of you, for being here today. Once again, some important reminders regarding our webinar series. In order to obtain a certificate, as I mentioned earlier, you need to have attended both webinar sessions, the webinar that took place on Monday and the one today, and to fill in the final activity. You will find all the necessary information on the webinar series page on EU Academy and as well, European School Education Platform. And of course, I just posted as a very, very small reminder on the chat. You will also find the short survey there to let us know your experience with the webinar series, give us some feedback, but please fill it in after you complete the final activity. The final activity should be available already. And yes, the certificates will be delivered. Yes, on that page I have shared with you the European Commission webinar series on effective team teaching. You can find the link in the post that I just posted on the chat. And as you can see here, some learning events that are running right now on the European School Education Platform. We have the online tutorial that has opened already, some online courses that are running in self-paced format, and some of them will open in the upcoming weeks. Of course, new topics are to follow from January onwards. This was the last webinar for this year, if I'm not mistaken. And we would like to thank you all. We would like to also wish you a very nice Christmas holiday, especially if you're celebrating Christmas and taking some days off. If you're not, we will see you from January onwards with new webinars, new topics, and we're looking forward to see you online again. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Aaron, and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Bye.